So, but I was always a writer. I was always a poet as a kid. Kind of, I was always into music and catchy lyrics, and I had an old camera, point and shoot camera. So I was kind of into photography at a young age. So I was always kind of interested in the art stuff. And in 1995, I ran into a friend of mine who happened to be a board director for an organization called the Aboriginal Arts Group, who used to be here in the Aboriginal Center. And she's like, Jacques, are you still doing poetry? And I'm like, yeah, because I won a couple little contests that I entered in my late teens, early 20s. And she goes, well, we're running an artist management training program through Red River College. She goes, because the Aboriginal Arts Group has a membership of 300 artists, but we have no one to manage them. We have a board of directors, we have an executive director, but we have nothing to work with these artists on a day-to-day. So we're selecting 10 people and we're going to train them to be artist managers. It was a pilot project, first time that was happening. So I said, well, that sounds exciting. And I applied and I got accepted into the program in 1995. So it's kind of an 8-month crash course of 1 week with an accountant, 1 week with a lawyer, 1 week with, different skill sets. But we also, the membership of the Aboriginal Arts Group, they had painters, they had carvers, jewelry makers, designers, photographers, writers, musicians, powwow dancers, designers. So they had a whole array of the mediums of the arts that were looking for help or looking for more opportunity. So that was our job as the 10 managers to be trained to help these people and in their chosen mediums. So it was exciting for me. But part of the course was an introduction to the culture. We had an elder that was appointed to our group. So every Monday morning, May Louise Campbell, some of you might have heard of her. She's quite well respected in the community. So she would come in and she would smudge with us on Monday mornings. And that was my first experience with a Indigenous cultural ceremony, if you will, like the smudging, the medicines. And then from there, we went on to having a sharing circle. So we were introduced into a sharing circle. And so we started every morning with that. And sometimes the circle would go on till lunchtime almost. But sometimes people didn't have much to say, so it might end up after an hour, it might be over. But sometimes people, once they got to know more of each other and more familiar with the process of the sharing circle, a lot of people just started pouring things out of themselves. And so it was a really beautiful thing to be introduced to, and it felt very good to me. Like it felt natural. Like it felt like something that I should have been a part of a long time ago. It felt like home almost. So through the course, we learned to 1 week we would put on a powwow. So 1 week I would be doing the press releases. The next week I would be emceeing. The week after I'd be organizing the snacks and booking the entertainment. So every week we held a different event, and we all had a different role in it each time. So it kind of taught us that process, how to put on an event from scratch to finish, and how to do each role as we went along. So as we went, I'm working with painters and carvers. So I got to learn what does your painting mean? What does your carving mean? Because there's a meaning to everything. There's a meaning to every color that's used, every animal. So they're like, well, there's the 7 teachings, but every animal has a teaching. So it was like, okay, so I'm getting to learn the teachings and the history behind all the different animals. And then with the powwow dancers, I'm learning more about the regalia, what the outfit means, what the drum represents. And the very first powwow I went to, as soon as the drum started, the singer started hitting the drum, like I just got goosebumps. Like it was just like such a powerful thing to be a part of. And it was just like, because there's a few times in growing up where we were supposed to go to powwows, but it never kind of worked out. But this was my first time being in that circle and sitting among them. And And at the same time, on the second floor of the Aboriginal Center, there's the Aboriginal Health and Wellness Center. And every second Friday, they had a sweat lodge at the Fort White Center out in, and so we would fill up a few vehicles from here every Friday after work, and we would drive down, and we would have a sweat on every second Friday. So then I started learning about the sweat lodge and started participating in the sweat lodge. And then from there, I offered tobacco to get my Ojibwe name. So then I was given my name and my colors. And so with friends, I started, went to a Sundance a few years after that. So I really got involved with the culture and the community. I was taken in to the community and embraced, and I kind of grew with it. And now it's 25 years ago now, and I've never left the center. Like, I've been here that long and embraced every part of it. I've sat on the boards of Mantuabe. I was on the first committee that got that started, and it was the first committee to do Aboriginal Day of the Forks to the size of the event that it is now. We started with a few little bands at the aqua stage or along the river there. So I really loved my role in the community and the community itself, and there's that mutual respect. And we started an Artists in the School program because I had all these artists, but I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. But we're all supposed to stay with the Aboriginal Arts Group. Like, we're supposed to finish this course and all be managers there. And for some reason, the program manager, the lady that was hired to oversee the classes that we were doing, and the executive director weren't seeing eye to eye. And then the board got involved, and some were taking part of one and some were taking part of the other. So what had actually happened is when the course finished, the Aboriginal Arts Group dissolved. They went to the funders, they did the dissolving of the incorporation, they ended all their financial agreements with their funders. And they left us right there. Like, we graduated, they waited until we graduated from the program, and then they went their own way. So we were all kind of left in limbo. And I got lucky that summer, because I got hired by the Manitoba Craft Council, and they wanted someone to go onto reservations and northern communities to see what the arts market was, or the crafts market was, and in these communities, how many artists were in these communities, if they're making like a living at it, or if they're making supplementing their income. Or so that was my job for like 3 months, is going into communities and seeing what was out there. But when I came back, the contract paid me pretty decent. And then so I saved it. When I came back to the Aboriginal Arts, to the Aboriginal Center. And the room we had with the Aboriginal Arts Group was still unrented. So I inquired about the space, and I would like to occupy it. I'd like to rent the space. So they said, sure. So I took over the space that we were in with the Aboriginal Arts Group. And I've been here like 25 years later, still working with artists. I'm helping them photograph their originals and helping them make prints out of it, so they're not forced to sell originals on the street for $20 or $50. So now they can say, well, I have 60 prints to choose from. You can buy one of these for $40 each if you can't afford the $500 original. So now, like, it's helping them as well to not really be forced to, what, I'm broke, it's Friday, I need money, I'll take $50 for my original. So it's helping them in that way, helping them with their CV, their resume, their portfolio, photographing, so they have a body of work that they can show. So I've been kind of doing that, as having a background as a photographer, so that came in handy. But through all these artists, I learned their crafts, I learned their teachings, what they represent. So it's a beautiful thing. So I'm learning from designers, I'm learning from the carvers, the painters, the crafters, what the dream catcher represents. So I'm learning all the stories behind the things that are being brought to me, and the animal teachings and the medicine wheel that's in some of the artwork. So it's like, and I'll be sharing that with you for the next 3 days. And what I'm sharing with you is not the one and only way of doing it. Every community has a little bit of a different take on it. The Ojibwe might do a little bit different in the Dene, or the Oji Cree, or the Cree might have a slightly different take. But the meat of it is the same, whether a little bit of differences here and there, but the teachings and principle are basically the same in all languages. So we'll start with the old way of life, I guess, the traditional lifestyle. So I'm going to open up my PowerPoint.
And does anyone have any questions right now before Jacques hits the PowerPoint? No? Okay.
Can you see that? Does it show up? Okay. So we're going to go way back, probably thousands of years back, to living off the land and living in communities. And a lot of times they traveled behind the bison, like the bison would roam and they would follow them, because that was their main food source, was the bison, the largest source of meat, the hide, the bones. So a lot of times you'll go into an Indigenous organization and you'll see like the 7 teachings on the wall. And a lot of times they focus on those 7, but there's a lot of other animals that have teachings. But so before European contact, the original people used to live off the land. Many of their ways they learned from the animals. They respected their surroundings and valued all aspects of life. Nothing was ever wasted. When they hunted, everything was used by the village and the families. So that was a very important thing, was like, they never killed for the sake of killing something. There was an importance to it. There's, it was like a spiritual almost. It was like, it was a sacred thing to take a life, and they knew that and they respected that. So nothing was ever wasted. It was for their own livelihood is why they did it. So learning from the animals, a lot of their teachings, they would watch the animals, they would watch the wolves, and they would watch the bears, and they would watch, the eagles and beavers. And so they kind of, they learned how they worked together, how they built things together, how they grew as a community together for the animals. And a lot of times they learned some of these teachings from, well, a lot of their teachings actually came from the animals. That's why they look up to the animals. So if you look in that picture, you can see the seven teaching animals. There's the eagle, the wolf, Sabe, or Bigfoot, as some would call it. There's the bear there, the turtle, the bison, and the beaver. So you can kind of see that all in. And then again, they raised the feather, so that's to represent the connection to the Creator, because the eagle flies the highest and brings that message from the people to the Creator. So they hold up that feather to respect that eagle, but also to connect to the Creator. So the first teaching is love. It's the eagle. So the eagle can reach the highest out of all the animals. It is closest to the Creator and is considered a messenger. It carries the power of the Great Spirit love. It's the most powerful medicine. It is understood that if you don't love yourself, it's impossible to love anyone else. So that's that first teaching is self-love. If you, how can you be happy with somebody else if you aren't happy with yourself? You just gotta embrace yourself, love yourself, and then you can truly love others as you should. You love your community and your family and those around you. So buffalo, I guess bison is probably more the correct term. So no animal was more important to the existence of Indigenous families than this animal. And that's why it's the teaching of respect. There's nothing, no other animals as it was as important Indigenous people as the buffalo. Its meat, the hides, bones, and intestines were used in the existence of food, shelter, clothing, and utilities for living and hunting. It was the largest meat source for the people. And again, even the tail was used as a fly swatter. It was a very, very important animal. And the bear represents courage. So the bear provides many lessons, but courage is the most important one. The ferociousness of a mother bear when one of her cubs is approached is the true definition of courage. So if you mess with a mama bear's cubs, you'll see how courageous she can be to get out of her comfort zone, to step up and protect her cubs. We must use courage to use our mental and moral strength to overcome fears that prevent us from living our true spirit as human beings. So sometimes, we're scared to, maybe apply for a job, or to, we're all stuck in our comfort zones a lot, and a lot of times we're afraid to get out of our own comfort. But the teaching is to have that courage to get past that, and to get yourself to maybe improve your life or improve things around you by just, by taking that chance, by doing something that could be very important to you. So honesty is Sabe, Bigfoot. But the teaching here is accept yourself for who you are and never try to be someone else. So, never try to impress others or be somebody you're not. To, just be yourself, and the right people will surround you. Like, people will love you for who you are, not for who you're trying to be. So, that's very important to be who you are, and to have that honesty within yourself, to let it shine through. The highest honor that could be bestowed upon an individual was the saying, "There walks an honest man or woman." They could be trusted. And that was very important back in the day, that the community thought of you that way. Like, it's back in the day, everyone had a role. That saying, it takes a community to raise a child, and that's true, because back in the day, there's a lot to be done, because your survival depends on it. Like, you need to get ready for winter, for fall harvest. And if you're hunting, that right away, especially in the summertime, that meat will go bad fast, and that hide will go bad fast. So you need a crew that's dealing with smoking the meat. You need someone who's like, tanning the hides right away. You got someone who's soaking the stomach and taking all the food out of the guts to clean out the sinew, to make the intestine, to make sinew out of that. Bones were turned into tools and weapons. People were out fishing. People were out, harvesting nuts and seeds and berries. People were making baskets. Some people were working with medicines. Like, so everyone had a task, like, there's no, it was so important that, and a lot of times the elders would be with the younger ones as the adults went out to do a lot of things, but the elders would teach the kids, the old ways, and why things are done a certain way, and why they've been doing things for so long that way, and why it works, and the animal teachings, and even the plant teachings, like what plants is medicine, what plants are poison, like the root of this plant is good for that, and the leaves of this plant are good for this, and if you're sick this way, these plants are good for this. So there's a lot of traditional oral knowledge that's been passed on from the elders to the kids, and those kids into adults, and to their elders, and they pass it on to their grandchildren. So there's a lot of that oral tradition that's been passed on, and knowledge based, that's a lot of these communities had, you know. And so the important thing about that's about being yourself, you know, and that's why it was so important that people can actually trust you, you know, like that was the greatest honor, was like, that's an honest person, you know, like that's good people, you know, like, and that's what you wanted. Like back in the day, that was the way you wanted to be, you know. And keep your promises you make to yourself and others. So it's very important that, you know, you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it, you know, and they don't even second guess it, you know, they just know you're going to be there for them. And, you know, you know, if they're looking after the kids, that they're going to do a great job doing that. And if they're out hunting, you know, people were trusted in their positions in the community, and loved by all. So the beaver, you know, they would watch the beaver and they would see how hard they worked all day long, you know, cutting trees, dragging trees, fitting trees like a puzzle to where it actually stopped water, you know, like how tight of a fit does that have to be to actually prevent water from going through a bunch of branches. Like that's, you know, that's knowledge right there, you know, like, so they're known for their hard work, determination, and creativity. So that's, you know, they would watch them work together. The building of a community is entirely dependent on the gifts given to each members. So everyone has talents, you know, like someone might be a phenomenal ukulele player, and someone might be a phenomenal runner, and someone might be great at math, and someone might be great at climbing trees, you know, like we can't all be judged the same way based on talents, you know, like we all have different talents. And that's important in the community, is that, you know, we share these gifts, we have these gifts, and, you know, just because someone isn't good at something that you're good at, you know, it doesn't mean that you're going to be good at something that they're good at, you know. So we all have to, you know, respect these gifts that we're given, and the gifts that others have, to appreciate them, you know. But it's also important to keep working. Like if a beaver didn't continue working, his teeth would grow past his chin and they would become useless. So if you don't use your gifts, they dry up, you know, they become useless. Because I know as a teenager, I played a half decent guitar, and now I have no idea what I'm doing with the guitar, you know, like you use it or lose it, kind of that mentality. And that's important as well, because, you know, if you don't, it's like the beaver, you know, if you don't use, you know, if you're not working and using your talents, they'll become useless on you. So it's a reminder for us to use our talents, or they too will become useless. So the turtle represents truth. So the turtle is the protector of female powers, the earth, and the water. The turtle represents Mother Earth. We inhabit the shell on her back, called Turtle Island. So there's that, you know, the legend of Turtle Island, you know, where, like, even if you look at the shape of North America, of the Americas, it's all in the shape of a turtle, you know. It's amazing that they would know that, you know, without airplanes and such back in the day, to actually see the shape of we're living on Turtle Island, you know. And the turtle is the strong silent type, you know. It walks through very, very slowly, listening to everything, taking it all in. You know, it knows the truth, you know, it knows what happened, and knows what's going on. So it represents that truth, you know, like and it's very important, is the truth. It's to always speak the truth, so you never have to remember your lies or make one lie to cover another lie, you know. It's like you deal with the truth right away, and people respect that, and, you know, more peace of mind for yourself, and it just shows character, you know. It's very important to represent truth. That's why it's in the 7 teachings. See, and there's a picture I was telling you about of Turtle Island, like how, you know, how would they have guessed, how would they have said that 1,000+ years ago, that we live on Turtle Island? Like, you know, how would they even have seen what the land looked like back then? You know, so that's kind of, I like that. I like that picture. So the teaching of the wolf is humility. It represents stability of the family unit. It's a teacher and a pathfinder. A lack of arrogance and has respect for its community. You know, they always work together. You know, it shows the importance of working as a team. You know, so what would have a better chance of taking down a moose, you know, like a one wolf by itself, or, you know, or 5 or 6 wolves working together, you know. So it doesn't have that arrogance, you know, of like, this is mine, you know, this, you guys get something else. It always had that community first mentality, you know. It's like we work as a team, we hunt as a team, we eat as a community, you know. It had that importance of working as a team. And will not eat until food is shared with the pack. So that was very important, you know. It wasn't it had no greed in any of its way, you know. So it was always taking care of others in the community first. And that was important with the Indigenous communities. Like they, again, same thing, you know, they hunted as a community, you know, they harvested as a community, you know, they tanned their hides and leathers and rawhide as a community, because they had to get ready for winter, you know, not only survive your day-to-days as they're happening, but also look at the winters we get. Can you imagine living in a teepee in this weather? Like it's, you know, minus 35 wind chill, and you're living outside, you know, you're protected by, you know, you're inside your teepee, you're nice and warm in there, and that's your shelter, you know. It was a lot, you know, very tough. Nowadays people complain the hydro went out for 2 hours, you know, as opposed to what it must have been, really how tough it must have been back in the day to, but you had to be ready for that, you know. You had to have your furs ready and your food source. And so those were the 7 teachings, and we'll go over some more, and they're not just a reminder once in a while to, oh yeah, I gotta remember to love things. You know, these are things you carry in your heart. You know, these are things that you try and live by every single day, you know. And it's not a every so often I'll try and remember to respect things, you know, or to have some humility, or to tell the truth, you know, or to have courage for things. These are things you try and carry with you every day, you know. And then you treat people the same way, and they treat you the same way. So if you have a whole community and they're all like-minded and they all carry these things in their heart and treat each other the same way, you know, you have beautiful relations, you know, you have beautiful energy, you know, within yourself and within your community, and what comes back to you, you know. So these aren't things just to, you know, these are the old ways of life, to carry these things in your heart. So we'll go over a lot more animals. So there's, like, you know, that it's important to, I know that like a lot of schools and, you know, posters and stuff, that they really promote the 7 teachings, and they're very important. You know, that's why they're called the 7 teachings. I guess they're highlighted a lot more, is to, you know, to really have those with you. But every animal has a teaching to it. So we'll go over maybe some of the, you know, the less known teachings. So the loon, you know, it's a symbol of peace and tranquility, a messenger of the arrival of warmer weather. You know, so in the springtime, you'll always hear that call of the loon. So you know it's going to be warm for the rest of the summer after that. You know, it's just a call of peace, and summer, spring is here. You know, like the winter's over. So it's that peaceful call, and a messenger for of a warmer weather to come. So the deer is known for being graceful, gentle, and sensitive. You know, you kind of watch a deer skip around, you know, and you just know it's a gentle animal. So it's known for that. So rabbits, the teaching of the rabbit is fear, but it reminds us not to be afraid. Because fearful thoughts reproduce like rabbits and bring on the very thing we fear. So fear reproduces itself, you know. So if you worry about, oh my God, I got so many bills, and oh my God, I got classes, and oh my God, I didn't study, and oh my God, this is coming up, and all you're doing is rehashing your oh my gods, you know, you're all you're doing is you're thinking of your problem over and over and over again, and it's consuming you, you know, it's reproducing the very fear that you're, you know, so you're not focused, you know, your attention based on the solution, you know, all you're doing is almost drowning yourself in the fear itself. So it's a reminder of not to be, you know, not to fear things, you know, to you know, look for that solution, and to not be afraid, because, you know, again, those fearful thoughts just will stress you out, and stress eats at your body, and, you know, so it's a negative environment. So it's the teaching of is to, you know, to not be afraid. And the raven is a symbol of knowledge. It's a creature who can make anything happen, also known as a trickster and transformer. You know, so there's a lot of legends of, you know, the raven turning into, you know, shape shifting, or, you know, stealing things or hiding things. But they're also brilliant animals. I was watching a documentary where they basically, you know, they're teaching them to, you know, drop rocks into water to make the water level rise for them to get the food at, or how to slide a series of doors to get the food behind the doors, and then they did all the, you know, they did them like 9 different little things in a row that they had to go through, and they, you know, they learned, and they figured out all the things they had to do, you know. So they're, you know, they've got a great mind to them. And but yeah, they'll steal things as well. And you always hear people, you'll hear people say that, you know, they found a raven's nest, and there's always a bit of jewelry in it. You know, they like shiny things. And there's a girl in BC that I was reading a story a while back that she started feeding the crows or the ravens that were coming in her backyard. And all of a sudden, she said they started bringing her like little pieces of jewelry and things they would find. They were bringing her back gifts and stuff. So, you know, and even like nuts and stuff, you'd see them, you know, dropping them on the highway, and for vehicles to break the nuts open for them to go and eat the meat of it once they're crushed, you know. So they're very, very, very talented. So our link to the spirit world is the owl. You know, people believe that when you see an owl, someone will die soon, and especially in the Ojibwe culture. A lot of the old ladies, you know, they don't like the owls because they, you know, they think that it represents death. But with death, although also comes new beginnings. So sometimes it's not the death of a person, but maybe it's a death of a cycle of life. You know, maybe you're finishing school, or maybe you're finishing a job that you're working on, and you're moving on to something else. You know, so it's not always a bad thing or a negative thing, but it's, you know, it represents change, and sometimes it could be a physical death where people, you know, someone will say they saw an owl, and then someone in the community dies not too long later. So it all depends on what's happening. It's also the silent and knowledgeable one. So again, you know, you always see that owl just kind of watching, you know, in the tree, seeing what's going on. So the hummingbird, the joyful messenger. So when a hummingbird flies near, you'll receive healing energy. So it's a reminder to be encouraged to develop their abilities and resilience while keeping a playful and optimistic outlook. So you always got to be optimistic, you know, always think of the best that could happen, you know, like good things are coming my way, you know, like bring on some healing energy, you know. So it's got to be optimistic. It's important, you know. Too many people they see the worst in things, you know, like, oh my God, that's going to happen. And I'm sure that's going to happen. And oh, I'm sure that, you know, they relive the worst case scenarios without really trying to focus on something good might come out of it. So. And the horse is pretty much always always been one horse pulling the horses, pulling the sleigh, 2 horsepower. 4 horses pulling the, the logs out of the woods, 4 horsepower. So there's, and now you look at cars, it's all that car's got 350 horsepower. So it's always been an hour, and to this day, it's still being used to reference power. So the fox is always considered sly and crafty. You try and keep a fox out of the chicken coop, and they'll find a way to dig under the fence or rip open the fence or dig under the building. They always, they'll always find a way to sneak in there. And so they're considered sly and crafty. So they're an interesting thing. I was watching a video where a fox was on top of the snow, and it must have been 2 feet of snow or maybe even more. You can see the fox kind of moving around, listening to the snow. Then it jumps up and it dove into the snow till only the tail was coming out of the hole, and the thing would back out and had a mouse in its mouth. Like it's just very, very great hearing and hunting to be able to do that. So very, very skilled hunter, but very crafty and sly. And the swan is known for elegance and grace, and to this day you still hear of the the grace of the swan dance, and it's associated with some very graceful movements. So cougar is known for swiftness and balance. I remember when I was 18, I was working in Edmonton, and I was coming back to Manitoba, and I was in that stretch between Edmonton and Lloydminster, and I was driving down the highway, and there's like a fair wide ditch, and then there's like a fence line with trees on the other side, up on the ditch side, and a cougar came out of the woods, and it ran along the fence. So I slowed down, and for about 30 seconds, it stayed side by side with me, and I watched it run. It was just a beautiful big cat just running, and then it kind of darted back into the woods. So, but it was just gorgeous to see one in person. That's besides the zoo, I think that's my one and only time of actually seeing one in person. So the butterfly represents freedom and an easygoing attitude. So we got to remember that for ourselves. You got to be easygoing. Like can't be stressed on things, and enjoy life, because we're only here for a short amount of time. So try and enjoy that freedom. Like the butterflies kind of bouncing from one flower to the other. Like it really, really looks carefree. It just looks so relaxed and so enjoying itself. So I know we always get caught up in work and home life and bills and other struggles and illnesses and family life and whatever else catches up to you. And sometimes you just got to take a minute for yourself and just remember that, just try and be easygoing sometimes. The dragonfly embodies the stripping away of negativity that holds us back, helping us to achieve our dreams and goals. Butterflies are the keepers of dreams, the energy within that sees all our true potential and ability. Dragonflies inspire spirituality and creativity that helps us on the path of discovery and enlightenment. They remind us that anything is possible. So again, that's how people would look at life back in the day. Is just like try and be in a good mood, try and be positive, try and have good thoughts and good energy for ourselves and to others. So now you did your hunting, you went out and you took down a deer or a moose or a bison. So now you have the skins, and there's 3 different things that could be done with an animal skin. You can keep the fur on it, and have yourself like a fur blanket or a fur coat. You know, you can scrape the hide off and make a leather, a very, you know, pliable leather that, you know, the jackets and pants and purses are made out of. Or you can make a rawhide out of it, and it's that tough hide like you see on drums and shields. So it had like 3 different purposes to it, depending on how you treated it from after skinning the animal. So there, yeah, so the hides were turned into furs, leather, and rawhide. The leather was used for clothing and covering their teepees. Furs were used for clothing, bedding, and shelter. Rawhide was used for the drums, rattles, shields, and binding for tools and weapons. So if you take, and they would use not only the skin for that, but they would use the stomach and the intestines and the tendons were all pulled out of the animal and soaked. And you would cut that into tiny, you know, maybe inch wide, half an inch wide strip, depending on what you're doing, even thinner if it was a different purpose. But you can, it's rubbery. When you soak the rawhide, it's like rubber, you know, you can stretch it. And then, so you would wrap around, you know, your branches to make a shield, or your form to make a drum. And so you can wrap it like rubber band almost, you can wrap it. But when it dried, it became tough as nails, like it would just harden like rocks. Like it was really tough, and it would, like, you know, really hold on to, you know, the arrowheads onto the wood, you know, because you would wrap your arrowheads or your spearheads, you know, slide it into the end of a, you know, a stick there that you carved into a spear handle or into an arrow shaft. And then you use that really thin sinew to wrap it. And then once it dried, it was just fastened there. It was really tight. So you have to watch it and make your drums too tight. When you make a drum, you got to make it baggy, because when it dries, it's tight. You know, you can, when you hear a drum, it's that doom, doom. You know, it's very, very tough material, but it was like really rubbery when it was wet. So it'll shrink. So when you make a drum or a shield, make sure you make it a little bit loose, because it'll tighten to the form of what you're putting it on. Because if you make it too tight when it's wet, it'll just crush whatever you put it on. So it's very versatile. Like they had a lot of knowledge to you know, to use these things back in the day, to actually use them the way they did. So the animal meat, you know, the meat was shared among the families and no one was left out. So that was very important, was to, you know, because we basically have 6 months of winter here. So you got to think of, okay, you know what, we need, you know, we can do a little bit of hunting in the winter, but we need to make sure that we have a food source that'll last us for the winter if need be, you know, because if it's really cold out or really stormy, you know, you're not really going anywhere. You know, you're stuck in your teepee for maybe days at a time, and maybe the even hunting might not even be that good in the winter. You know, if it snows 3 feet deep and you're having trouble getting around, you know, so sometimes you're hunkered down for a while. So you want to make sure that, you know, you got lots of dried meat, and what wasn't eaten immediately was dried or turned into pemmican. So pemmican was an old style survival food they made. And so basically it was, well, I guess we'll get into that. So yeah, and a lot of the stuff was made to last the winter. You know, even fish would be dried. So you'd have, you know, depending on where you lived, if you're more inland, maybe you didn't have access to fishing, but you know, like you look at the West Coast, they did a lot of salmon smoking. You know, they had a lot of salmon to get them through the winter. But so it's depending if you had access to fish, and if you're close to a lake, you know, you might be able to get some good fishing. So this is what pemmican was. It was a survival food, but also like a hunting food. You know, you take a little bit of pemmican with you in the morning as you went out and hit the trails to go hunting. You know, it'll give you something to nibble on a little bit as you're out in the wild all day long. But it's 1/3 clean dry meat, 1/3 berries, and 1/3 clean animal fat. So it was the perfect food. You know, you had your protein, your carbs, and your fats. You know, it was a very good survival food. It had all your building blocks. You know, it didn't have anything missing from it. And you can see the top picture, how it kind of looked like when it's all mashed together, you know. So it's ground together and stored for times of little food. So usually in the winter, and it could last for years. You know, someone found some in a kind of a well, I guess like a storage kind of like a well made for storing stuff, and they found pemmican, and they figured it was probably a couple hundred years old, and they said it still looked good, you know, like it still looked like it was edible. And so it was important that we had a good diet, because if you look at, and there people were healthy back then, you know, you didn't see much for, but then you're active as well, so you had some good things going for you. You know, you didn't see obesity back in the day. You know, you didn't see, you know, heart condition, and you know, you didn't see, you know, diabetes. You know, people were very, you know, hardworking. You're up with the sun and you're down with the sun, and you were doing something all day long. You know, you're very active, and that's why a lot of Indigenous people have trouble with today's diet. You know, if you look at our traditional diet for thousands of years, you know, was that, you know, the nuts and seeds and berries and plants, and you know, lean meats, and yes, and so now they're having, you know, people are having trouble with the, you know, processed foods, and lots of sodium, and even our sugar intake. Like back in the day, people were getting maybe 15 grams of sugar a day. You know, maybe you're getting some through your berries that you have, and maybe a little bit if you scored some honey, you know, so you're getting 15 grams a day on average back in the day. And now people are getting around 150 grams a day of sugar, if not more, in their diets. So people are getting 10 times the daily amount every single day now, as opposed to, you know, that 15 grams daily. Now you're getting 150 grams daily. So it's hurting our bodies, you know, because our bodies can't digest that, or can't function with that. You know, it's affecting our health, and the changing of, you know, of our diet, as opposed to, and it wasn't that long ago we were living off the land, you know, like, so that's why you always hear about it's affecting the Indigenous population more than the other populations, you know, because this was, you know, our diet for thousands of years, and we've made some big changes to it, because no one really lives off the land anymore. Like some people still do, like, but it's few and far between compared to everybody who was living that way once upon a time, and so it is affecting today's health. Animal bones, you know, so the bones were kept. You know, sometimes they were split and they were used for, you know, the scraper for the hide or the antlers, and you see some obsidian there. So if you see the knife, you can see the tiny strips of the rawhide. So, you know, they would cut the rawhide so thin, and then they would soak it, and it would be like a rubber band. So it'd be like, when it's wet, it'd be like wrapping a rubber band around the end. But then when it dried, it would just like really fasten it to the end. So it was used a lot. Like even behind me, you can see like a shield. So that would be made out of rawhide. So, you know, so it had a lot of purposes. But the bones were used for tools and weapons, you know, jewelry and crafts and clothing. You know, they would make buttons out of, and then they would be used for, you know, scraping the hair and the fat off the hide. So you made scrapers, you know, sharpen the end of the bone and make scraping tools out of it, and gardening tools, and, you know, pigs. So everything was used. Like there was nothing was ever thrown away. This kind of a picture on, you know, the antlers are being used for something, the neck bones are used for something, the spine was used for different things, the hooves were, you know, used for different things. Like everything had a purpose. Like it was taken apart, and everything was used. And a lot of tribes and communities would also, like in some wouldn't bury their dead. Some of them would put them back for the other animals as well. Like, so they would, return it to the earth, So there's a picture from like 1890 of the blood reserve in Alberta. And I see that in a lot of paintings, if someone will have a painting of something, and then in the background there's like, you can see like bodies and trees and stuff. And so that represents, some of their ancestral ways that they kind of show in their artwork still. And so, yeah, some would bury and some would put them out for the animals to return them to dust, to back to the earth. And then there's the feathers. Some call it the red roads. Some people call it the eagle road, the quill road. And the tip represents adulthood, so the vein represents the days of our lives and the choices we make. So, we all start from fluff, we all start from the beginning. That as we go down the road of life, it gets smaller, shorter and shorter as we get to the end of it. And that kind of represents the trail down the middle of the feather. And the left and right represents, falling off of the road and, making our way back onto the road, and hopefully without consequences. And some people lose their lives when they fall off the road and they don't make their way back, So it's got the kind of the teaching of the feather, it's like there's wrong and right and bad and good and everything. We have decisions that we make every day, and our decisions kind of make our direction in life. It's like, what if I would have done this 40 years ago, or what if I would have went and taken that class 30 years ago, or what if I would have moved back to wherever 30 years ago. So life is full of what ifs, I guess. So, but then that's the road. We're always on a road, and as we get older, the road gets smaller and shorter. So enjoy your road. So here it kind of shows a fan. Feathers would be used to make fans for smudging. And then here you can see some sage in the shell, and so then some sweetgrass. So people would burn, but we'll get into the medicines and smudging very shortly. And here you can see like a deer hide and maybe some rabbit hides here. So then the guts, the tendon were taken out of the animal as well. The stomach and the intestines were emptied out and cleaned. So, the stomach was cut open, all the food would be taken out, and they would put the food on, they would tie branches together or logs to wood together to kind of make a platform. And they would take all the food inside that stomach and dump it out and put it out for the other animals to eat. So they, the birds would come and eat. So at the end of the day, there was nothing left of that animal, like even whatever was in the stomach of that animal was put back out for the other animals to come and eat it. And so nothing was wasted, because that was the worst thing back then, was to waste something, because it was such a big thing to have to kill something, and they even created a ceremony for it. Like if you look at the Sundance, and it's a highly respected ceremony to respect the bison. They drag the buffalo skulls, and that's to honor that the ultimate gift of giving its life for the people to survive, and they don't take that lightly, and that's something that, and that's very, very respected, and very, we don't want to waste a thing, and even like well, society changed completely once the Europeans arrived, and all of a sudden there's a price tag on furs. That was the first time that they actually had to look at the way they looked at their animals. But we'll get to that, and probably by Friday that'll be our lesson for Friday in there somewhere. So the intestines and tendons, you can kind of see in the bottom picture, they were used the same way that rawhide would be used, and they were soaked, cut into strips and used for binding, tools and weapons, etc. Tendons were pulled out and used the same way. So everything had purpose. The leftovers. So whatever was left over from the stomach is taken out and left for the other animals to eat. They had total respect for animals and only killed out of survival. No part of the animal was wasted. So again, whatever was left, they would put out in the woods, and the other animals would come and find it. And again, here you can kind of see some people call it the seven teachings, or some call it the great binding law. So the turtle. So there you can kind of see a picture or a poster, if you will, of the seven teachings. And this is something you might find in a school nowadays. You see a lot of Indigenous culture being brought into the schools finally. Like when I went to school, there was no such thing as this in a school. It was like the history class was like Columbus discovered America. The land was filled with savages. It was just a brutal take on the indigenous population that existed here for thousands of years prior to the arrival of Columbus. And I'm glad there's a lot of these teachings being brought back into schools, so they're teaching the kids at a young age. And one example is here in the building. We have a Head Start program. So I think it's for like kids age 3, 4, and 5, and so they're learning these teachings at that young age. They're learning Ojibwe and Cree words at a young age. They're learning the sharing. They're learning the medicine wheel at a young age. So they're learning a lot of things that we never had exposure to as when we were kids. So it's nice that it's actually being included with things now. And we actually have, I think we've been here like 20 some years for the Head Start program. And we have kids that were here 20 years ago who now have kids and are bringing their kids into the program because they speak so highly of the class and being exposed to their culture at such a young age. Like for me, it took me until I was 25 years old to be exposed to the culture. And, so I'm really glad these kids are having it when they're very young, and something they can carry with them through their lives. So if you keep reminding yourself to carry these 7 things in your heart and in your mind daily, after a while it becomes a habit. You don't have to think of it anymore because it becomes a part of you, and how you react to others. Because I know sometimes people are consumed with greed, and greed isn't one of our teachings, and we're more for, even one of the old wars where, the indigenous people were being killed, and you're like, well, why take with hate when you can have it with love? It's like, why are you killing us when I'll give it to you with love, So but again, that's something we'll get into. So those are the 7 teachings, but there's more than just the 7. The Lakota have, a 12 teaching system where, they add, perseverance and sacrifice and compassion and fortitude and generosity in with the 7 teachings. So, every group is a little different, and everyone has a teaching system. So, but again, these are all good things to embrace and to welcome into your life. And the words weren't originally English words, if you look at the teachings, respect, that was the actual word to respect. It's like good, good speak, and love, and strong heart, bravery, and wise, intelligent, wisdom, and go straight way of life, honesty and check up on humility, so these are some of the original words that went with the teachings and how they were translated into the words we use in the English language.
Hi, sorry to jump in, but what language was that?
Ojibwe, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Any more, since that's kind of the end of the animal teaching, so anyone have any other questions?
Well, I feel like I need to put my rabbits to rest,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I didn't know all the teachings for all the other animals, actually. I'm going to focus on dragonflies and butterflies.
Yeah, it's important to focus on good things. And there's other animal teachings, like salmon represents fertility, and frogs is known as communication. Because you'll always hear like ribbit somewhere else, ribbit. So there's a lot more animals than what we
What
covered.
about the Thunderbird, Jacques? Is there any teachings of the Thunderbird? Because I see a lot of reference of that in Indigenous art.
There is, yeah. We'll be getting down. It's a mythical being of connected to thunder and lightning, and I guess the kind of an almighty in a sense. I think it's going to be in probably maybe tomorrow's class. We'll be seeing that, but yeah, it's highly looked up to, and yeah, you do see it a lot, and especially in a lot of old cave drawings, you see that, and they actually pictures of huge birds where if they think maybe they existed at one time. Because I know there was a bird probably had like a 25-foot wingspan. I seen a picture once upon a time of, so there's an association with that of being, thunderbirds, existed at one time, and bigger than what the eagles are today. And
I had a question kind of going off that. Was Bigfoot considered an animal or a mythical creature?
Both, I think. Like people say you'll see it, but it's more it's spiritual as well. So you'll see, because you do see people have a lot of sightings, but but again, it represents who we are. It's a representation of us in the wild, or us seeing ourselves, and to reflect on our humility, and to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, I like who I see. It's like I know who I am, and so it's kind of that reflection on ourselves as well. But then you do hear people have, they say they see it and all over the place, up north, down in the States, and across Canada, but it's always grainy footage. It's you don't see someone with actually very clear footage. It's always but yeah, that represents us, and it's been in the legends and stories for thousands of years. So some people swear it's there, some people say it's part of the legends. So it's all up to you on how you want to believe it.
Thank you. That was a really good explanation.
Oh, thanks. If not, maybe we'll move on to medicine and smudging. So when we first started our class, the elder brought in, the 4 medicines, the tobacco, the sage, the cedar, the sweetgrass, and broke it all into a shell and lit it with a feather, to fan the fire, and we'll go around and smudge everybody. But it was like, who here actually knows why we're smudging? I know people smudge, but why are you smudging? So then I started asking the elders that, and then it was kind of broken down into why. So our native elders have taught us that before a person can be healed or heal another, one must be cleansed of any negative feelings, negative thoughts, bad spirits, or negative energy. So cleansing both physical and spiritual. So you're getting yourself into the right mindset. You're getting rid of your negative thoughts, like, and people will wash the smoke, like they'll bring it over their head, their face, their shoulders, they'll push it down right to their feet, push all that negative energy off their body. Some will turn around and have somebody fan their back from their head to their toe, just to spiritually get all that negativity off of your body, to clear your mind, so you're in a good headspace and physical, mental, spiritual energy space, so now you've gotten rid of those negative thoughts, that bad spirits and negative energy. So that's why people smudge, is to cleanse, so you'll hear a lot of people saying, I cleanse my house. So a lot of people will do this to their house as well. They'll go room to room, and they'll just get all that negative energy, negative thoughts out of that space, and to create a nice environment for themselves, to heal yourselves, or to heal in a group, or with others. So tobacco is burned for renewal and carrier of prayers. So that tobacco is to carry your prayers to the Creator. So that's where you burn that tobacco, and for renewal, out with the old, and let's renew that energy, and renew your faith. Sometimes sometimes people need to renew different things for different reasons. So it's that burning of tobacco is for that renewal. And cedar is used for courage, protection, growth, and cleansing. So sometimes people will burn cedar just for that protection. In their house, sometimes people feel unwanted energy, or spirits, or whatever you may have. So cedar is for protection, and for cleansing. And sage is known for purifying and giving energy. So if you ever watch a lot of those, ghost hunter shows, you'll see, the person comes in to clean it out, but they're burning a big stick of sage, and they're and a lot of times they'll do that to give direction. So sometimes if there's a trapped spirit or energy in a place, sometimes they'll burn that sage to give direction to that spirit to find its way home, and but even for us living, it's the asking for our own purification, and our own direction for our own spirit, so we're looking for that direction within ourselves, and to move forward in a good way. And sweetgrass, sweetgrass invites good, it invokes kindness, and is a protector in travel. So sometimes people will burn sweetgrass, and just for that reason, it's a protection, and as you're moving around in your daily life out there, and to bring good energy and thoughts into your life. And that's one of my favorite smells, is that burning sweetgrass, or even the fresh sweetgrass. When you smell that sweetgrass, it's just a beautiful smell, and I really enjoy that. So those are the four kind of medicines that are mostly used, but depending on if you're doing some doctoring or teachings of other sorts, sometimes other medicines might be added to it based on the elders' knowledge on medicines, and especially in sweats, when they smudge in a sweat lodge, depending on the cause, you'll see a lot of different herbs being pulled out for medicinal purposes if someone's in there for a specific reason. But we'll get to that shortly. So how to smudge? So to do a smudge ceremony, you burn the dry clippings of these plants. You rub your hands in the smoke, you fill your palms to gather the smoke, and you bring it into your body. So you get a nice little cloud going, and then you pull it in. Or you can have somebody there with a feather to push it on you to bring the smoke to. So keep praying all the while that the unseen powers of the plants will cleanse your spirit, or rub the smoke in any area you feel needs spiritual healing. Wash your body over with the smoke to wipe off any negative energy that may be on you. So that's again, like I said a little while ago, that smoke is to wash off that negative energy, to get you, to get you cleansed. And there's a pottery bowl, and usually you would use natural elements. You would use a shell, a lot of, not even, a lot of the times you'll see people using like an abalone shell or a large shell, or pottery, which is from the earth, as your main sources of your bowl for smudging. And a lot of times everyone usually uses a match. So they want a natural substance instead of a lighter to light your smudge. People usually will use a wooden match to light it, and usually let it burn out. Let it burn out on its own. You never want to be like trying to blow on it to put it out, or to flatten it to put it out. Like you want it to burn on its own and to go out on its own. So usually you shouldn't try to put out your smudge when you're done with it. Just let it finish on its own. And usually when you're done, like when it's all burnt, people would usually go out and put it back in the earth. They would put it on a tree. They would go outside and put it in the woods, or put it on a tree someplace and return it back to the earth instead of throwing in the garbage. You don't want to do that. So you want to return those ashes back to the earth. So here's kind of a little smudge poem. Like sometimes people don't know what to think or say when they're smudging. So here's a little example. It's like, Creator, bless me this day to have good thoughts, to see good things in a person, to hear good things from a person, to talk good to a person so that they can walk with others in a good way. Thank you, Creator. So it's just a little daily blessing, a little thank you. And, may I have good energy this day and good thoughts this day. So just a little reminder of keeping that good energy and looking for good energy. And again, just kind of smudging's been around, and the indigenous Native Americans aren't the only ones that use, the medicines, and the Roman and the Greek Egyptians, they would use it as well back in the day. So there's a few groups that would use smudge for cleaning the energy. And there's another medicine that isn't used unless for a certain ceremony. The mugwort would be burned for certain purposes. Yeah, so if you feel angry or resentful or unwell, you just have that negative presence on you, smudging is always good to release it all, to let it go with the smoke. Like take that anger that's inside of you and let it go with the smoke. Let it rise and away from you. And again, kind of another little prayer for smudging. And this one's more from the Dec.8. Share what you have, help others, sleep at night, work during the day, be polite and don't argue. Young girls and boys behave respectfully, love each other as much as possible, be as happy as possible all the time, and pass on the teachings. So that's something that, all the groups, Lakota, Ojibwe, Dene, and and all the nations throughout the Americas. There's like 500 nations. They all had their teachings. And they're all pretty similar with each other. There's always things in a good way. Always respecting the animals and each other, and sharing with each other. It was more important to share with others than it was to accumulate wealth for yourself. It was that was more important than anything else. So this is the last slide.
I'm sorry, can I just say something?
Sure.
It's just so ironic that that poster was sponsored by De Beers, which is the polar opposite of the teachings. Because De Beers is the diamond monopoly in the world. And it's just, to me, like, I just had to say that.
No, no, that's fine. I know they try
I
and,
guess they're making reparations in their own way.
yeah, I think they all try to do that at some point in some way, but yeah, they try to cover their tracks for sure, or make themselves look better.
Yeah.
So any other questions from that?
I
Yeah,
have a question. Oop.
Sure.
You go first.
Okay, Janelle, thanks. Just quick question was, when you are smudging, when you smudge people and spaces and places, is it common to smudge things or objects as well?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
is that,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. People go in their house and smudge their walls and their furniture and, their possessions, whatever you think. I know I had a lady come in here years ago in the gallery, and she spent like 2 hours basically smudging every piece on the wall. And so, but one thing I forgot to add is you usually will take off your glasses and jewelry.
Right. So
Okay. So you want to take off any jewelry or your glasses if you wear them, just to not have anything hidden, like any place for anything negative to hide behind. So you want to have that open skin, and yeah, usually everyone takes off their jewelry and their glasses.
right.
That kind of answers my question a little bit, because in the PDF handout under smudging teachings #2, it asks, what should you do before smudging? So I'm wondering if there's anything else you should do besides taking off glasses and jewelry.
Get into the right state of mind, like get yourself prepared to, okay, I'm going to be smudging, remove my glasses, my jewelry, start your little prayer to yourself and get into the good energy. And then you start smudging and you continue your prayer to yourself, and, thanking the creator, and just to get yourself in the right state of mind, basically. And then follow the protocol of removing your jewelry and glasses. And it's up to you if you want to just do a basic smudge like this, or if you want to do a full frontal smudge to your feet, or even if you want to stand up and turn around and have the person fan you from the back. So it's up to you how in-depth of a smudge you want to do. And you'll basically see all three different kinds if you're at a ceremony where smudging is taking place. And there's no wrong, like any three is acceptable. Like
Is there different protocols? I know that when we were doing these programs in person, that we would always have a sharing circle at the head of the day, and we would smudge around the circle for everyone. And we would always go clockwise.
Yes, yeah.
And start at the east side of the room with the directions. And that I was taught through teachings from elders never to actually blow on the smudge, but
That's
to
right,
use a feather to fan it.
Yeah. Yes, so that's right. Yeah. Either you let it burn on its own and gather it and pull it in, but yeah, never use your hand, or you never blow on it, because use a feather, if you will. Usually if everyone's got an eagle feather with their smudge bowl, and they'll use that to pull in. And sometimes you won't even need it. Sometimes you light it up and it just burns nicely on its own, it's roaring. And so yeah. So
And what's the protocol for like at work we have a smudge bowl, and at home I have my own. What do you suggest as a protocol for using somebody else's smudge bowl, or touching their feathers, or
as long as they're okay with it, like, if they're participating. And sometimes you'll see the person doesn't let go of it, like sometimes that person's holding the smudge bowl and holding the feather, and going around and smudging all the other people. Like you don't, but sometimes you'll see that the bowl is stationary and people go in one after the other to smudge. But I think it's as long as it's in a good way and the person who it belongs to is passing it to you to use, then it's all good. And I know some
Is
people.
the-
Go ahead.
It's okay. Is the eagle feather like generally what's used? I've seen owl feathers used before. Is that like, is there an appropriate kind of,
No,
or
no,
is it how it's acquired that's more important?
no, it's any and all is good. Like I know some people have they use the eagle feather because it's the connection to the creator and it represents love. So they'll use that in it. But some people have, their, say a red hawk is part of their spirit animal or something. And yeah, we've had yeah, you can use any feather you like. Because I know we've had people bring in like goose feathers. I've seen people use goose feathers and hawk feathers. So no, I don't think there's any wrong way of doing that.
I have a question about mugwort.
I have very little knowledge of mugwort.
Ah.
I know it's used, but I'm not sure of the purpose though. I'd be guessing if I said I did.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Yeah. But I've been to sweats where the elder opened up a briefcase and there's like, 20 different jars with all different names on them. And depending on the sweat, they would, you take out like 4 or 5 different jars and the herbs inside would be used inside the sweat for healing. But we'll touch base on that when we do the chapter on Sweat Lodge. And
Okay. I'm wondering if we should take a short break for 15 minutes. I know I have to use the facilities and I thought maybe somebody else might too. How does everyone feel about that idea?
A
Taking
break
a
is
break?
good, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
thumbs up.
Okay, so it is like 1:30, so 1:45. Yeah?
okay.
Okay. Okay, cool. Hey, Jacques.
There we go. Are we all back?
No, it looks like Elisa. Oh, there's Lisa and Chelsea. I have to say, I love the 7 teachings so much. It's always good to be reminded. They're such simple, honest, truthful ways of being and living. And I feel like a lot of times people will ask, how do we decolonize our workspace? Or what can we do? And often people say, well, just post the 7 teachings. But and sometimes, yeah, that's a good thing. And they're there to remind you, but it's more just, I guess, a way of being open and humble. Like I feel like that a lot of people want a guidebook on these are, which is a very sort of colonized way of thinking about, here's a list of the 10 things you need to do to show that you are an ally, that you're decolonizing, that you're open, that this is a welcoming art space. But it's more than that. I think it's not just having a place where people can freely smudge when and if they need to, but it's also just being like following the teachings and thinking about community. Another thing that really I've been thinking about since you said it was about how and one of the teachings is to remember to use your gifts or they dry up. Because I think oftentimes when I get, like, as my job is to help other artists in reach their goals, and I forget that I'm an artist too, and I also need to reach my goals and use my gifts. And by doing that, you're sort of sharing more knowledge. I know there's just some of the things that have been kind of going through my head since you started talking, that oftentimes we forget to use our own gifts.
Mhm. You got to carry it inside as well. Like, it's nice to have the posters on your walls, but you need to carry it inside of you as well. And sometimes people forget, but you always got to remind yourself, going, okay, I got to ground myself again, and I got to remember, I got to live by the teachings. Not just look at it when it's convenient, but to actually try and wake up with it in my heart every morning, and to face each day that way.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any sort of thoughts or feedback that's been rolling around in your heads?
I have a question about smudging. From what I understand is that someone who smudges, it can be a daily activity or a very private activity or even a public activity. But is there sort of when is it initialized, or
As soon as you feel like having one or need one,
yeah, and then as a person who's not Indigenous,
that's fine.
is this something that, say, I can do, or is this something that is frowned
No,
upon?
no, it's medicine. It's for the world. It's for everyone. And that's what the next chapter is going to be about, is the medicine wheel, like yellow, red, white, and black. We're all part of the same wheel of life, and we're all part of that same circle. And no, it's not just for us, that's for everyone.
I actually have a question too. Something we didn't cover with the medicines themselves is, for some people, it's easy to identify them and gather them, and knowing that you don't pull things out by the root, you don't take everything, you sort of take every just a little bit. Where do people, or where do you recommend people get the medicines if they don't know a picker or don't harvest them themselves?
I know a lot of people go in the Peguis area for sweetgrass. I know a lot of people go to Birds Hill Park for sage. And if you know, maybe you look online to kind of identify what they look like, maybe get used to the smells, because, you know, sage has a really nice smell to it.
Mm,
Cedar, you know, we all have that cedar smell. And the old rule of thumb in the old days was the medicine man would pick every third plant,
Mhm.
leave 2 behind, and take 1. And you would cut it maybe a few inches off the ground, and you would always leave the roots behind. So you never want to kill that plant for life, you know, you never want to destroy its roots. So the old rule of thumb was pick every third one. So leave 2, pick 1, leave 2, pick 1, leave 2, pick 1. So you're not destroying the population.
thank you.
Right, because medicine isn't supposed to be, you're not supposed to buy it. It's not
Right.
supposed to be,
You're not supposed to, you know, and I try and trade as often as I can. Like I'll go picking sage in the summertime, and then I'll try and barter with that for tobacco and for cedar. And I go picking my own cedar as well. So, and so I try and barter as much as possible for other medicines if I can't pick a certain medicine.
Are there any sort of recommended places in town for those, like, for instance, now it's winter, there's no picking of medicines. And I know, like, I used to work at a shop where we did have sage and we did have sweetgrass, and we had folks in the community who were pickers, and we would trade with them. But is it okay to purchase it from, like, I don't know, Tika's or Creations or somewhere that if they have it, or?
I think if you need to, you need to, because I'm also chair of Aboriginal Health and Wellness Center here in the building. And we have 9 or about 7 programs, and we smudge in most of them with
Mhm.
with the community. And usually in the fall, someone from the north comes in with, like, you know, 200 ties of sweetgrass,
Oh.
and we would purchase them for the community to use. So, you know, if it's out of necessity that we do it, because otherwise we wouldn't have. And we try and pick as much, like we do community, we do go out in the community, we pick our own sage and cedar, but the sweetgrass, I know we always run low on, and I know we purchase when we need to, but it's for the community. But ideally, if we could pick it all, we would pick it all.
Mhm.
I think as long as it's you're okay with it, then you're okay with it. Because I know some people, that's the only way they're ever going to find it or get it is
Yeah,
to go and purchase it. And I'd rather purchase it and use it than not to not have it and need it, you know, like. So it's all up to your own sense of what you think is right, you know, or what you would like to do.
and do you always leave tobacco?
Yes, if you go out picking, leave a little tobacco back as an offering. I usually carry a tobacco pouch in my glove compartment in my vehicle. So
Mm.
this way, if there's like a porcupine on the side of the road, you can take a blanket and just like rub the towel over the quills, and you can get like a blanket full of quills that way. You can use the quills and put out tobacco and some and yeah. So it's whatever different purpose of offering tobacco, and then. But yeah, picking medicines would be one of them.
So speaking of that, would it be okay to like grow your own?
For sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I know people grow tobacco, but I don't think you're supposed to. I'm not sure if like that's against the law or not, but
Speaking more of
No.
sage.
yeah, sage is grows wild, yeah. especially in the rocky areas. Like my brother lives way in the woods, and there's a gravel pit not too far from his place. And you go to the gravel pit, and it's just like a sage forest. It's just growing in the hard clay, gravelly side of the road and everywhere. So it's actually usually where I go and pick in the summer, and I bring back bags of it and do my bartering after that.
I guess that in some ways that could be in sort of acknowledgement of if you have land, is just to plant all those
Oh, yeah.
those medicines
Mhm.
for anybody to take,
Mhm.
I guess, in sort of the spirit of reconciliation.
Yeah, I think in front of the APTN building downtown, they have medicine gardens. And I think some of the public gardens along waterfront also have medicines in them.
I know they plant them here as well, like around the building and
Yeah,
around the shop and down the street a bit. There's gardens off the sidewalk.
You could do it in boulevards and back lanes and
I like that idea though, you know, as building owners to incorporate that. You know, we all want to kind of consider land acknowledgement plaques and things like that, but I think that that would be kind of, I don't know, to me that seems a little bit more of it speaks louder.
yeah.
And sometimes sweetgrass is hard to spot because it just, it's not braided until it's braided. So it just looks like grass. But sometimes I'll be driving down the road, and especially down Higgins, there's a sweet spot on Higgins where you just smell the sweetness in the air. Like you just smell like that sweet, natural sweetgrass smell. And so I know there's a patch there somewhere, it's, it's same thing behind my parents' place out in the country. Like there's a bush trail I go down, there's like a swampy area that's kind of dried out. And again, you just get that, oh, there's sweetgrass here somewhere, but
Does anyone know, are there seeds available anywhere? Like if what I wanted to plant some,
I've never searched, but I'm guessing there must be.
I mean, and local varieties will always do better than ordering
Mhm.
something from somewhere else.
Yeah, because there's different kinds of sage. Like here we have I guess it's called a prairie sage.
Yeah.
It's the silvery,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know the Montana area, their sage is a little different. And then you got the California sage, which is like really coarse and thick and really pungent compared to what our sage smells like. And so it's a little different everywhere. But yeah, we have a nice variety here in Manitoba.
I think there's
Curious
a,
about, with regards to the medicines, do essential oils fit in there anywhere, or is that too commercialized, too processed, too purchased?
Right. It's processed, but I think as long as the heart is in it and the medicines are in it, you can, because I know people do wear like sandalwood. There's different kinds of oils people wear, and I've smelled people wear sweetgrass oils on them or whatever they use to make
Or
sweet.
like in a diffuser?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think
There is a local company, I forget the name now, that does make some essential oils, like cedar and sage, for example. I can't think of the name of it.
Yeah.
When I was looking for it last spring, was in lockdown, and it was really hard to find anything. And I gave up, I think, after a while, but everything was closed then.
And now I know there's soaps too. You see cedar bars of soap and sweetgrass and soap, and so I think as long as your intentions are good, and I don't see why not. And some people say you shouldn't smudge if you drank within a few days. Like people recommend, but then some elders say, well, some people will never be able to smudge if they have to wait till they're sober for 4 days. So there's two schools of thought on it. Somewhere, you should wait 4 days before you go to a sweat or before you use the medicines. And some people say if you need it, then you should use it. And those people need it more than anyone and should be able to access it. So So there's starting to be a more school of thoughts. I'm for, you know, the culture being a very closed thing, and but now you know, you go to Sundances and it's open to all cultures and all communities, and same thing with the Sweat Lodge, and now it's being open for what people call the Rainbow Warriors. So it'd be like all the colors of the people of the world coming together and uniting within and using the culture. You know, it's not a closed hidden thing anymore, because I think it was hidden out of necessity back in the day, because you were punished for actually using your culture, for, you know, punishable by death for smudging, or for, you know, for talking in your language, or, you know, or going to sweats and stuff. So it came very hidden and very unspoken, you know. And so but now it's becoming more talked about for sure, and being more shared with other cultures. But no, it's to be shared for sure. The other, I know we have a lot to cover in 3 days, and so if we just jump into the next topic, we'll discuss medicine wheel, and it's something else you see quite a bit of in schools. You'll see a picture of the circle, and then it's broken up into 4, and they got the, you know, the yellow, red, the black and white. So that's the medicine wheel, but it's also our circle of life. That's you in the center. You know, that's your, embodies your whole being. But I'll pull up the. Did anything pop up? Okay, so we'll talk about medicine wheel teachings. Our ancestors believed in the medicine wheel and the circle of life, that when you fit one upon the other, you'll see the world in its true form, releasing tears of joy as in ceremony. Everything has a rhyme or reason for doing what we did, countless centuries of honing and practice. It was living in sync with the natural process. So again, this kind of fits in with the teachings as well. It all blends in very nicely as a way of life and a part of life. So life begins in the east. The sun rises, so we have yellow in the east, and this is where life begins. So as we go through life, we go through the south door, the west door. So it also kind of talks about our stages of life: the yellow maturing to red to black, returning to the light, and being reborn again. So it encompasses that circle of life that we all go through. But it also encompasses the directions. You know, the north, the south, the west, the east are represented. The colors yellow, red, black, and white are represented. But it also represents the color of people in the world. You know, so it kind of embodies everyone in the world under these categories. So it's like we're all included. You know, it's not just for one group to follow. So life begins in the east in childhood. So we're born. That's the first thing, is our physical body entering the earth. Our second stage is adolescence. Our third stage of life is adulthood. And our last stage of life is being an elder, and then returning from the light back into rebirth. So it's that, and whether that rebirth is our reincarnation, or our children, or our grandchildren carrying on a circle of life for you. So there's many ways of approaching that. So it also encompasses our physical being. Our first stage of life is our physical body. We're here, we're in the world. The second stage is emotional. You know, we're hungry, we cry, we don't feel good, we cry. So our second stage in life is developing our emotions. Our third stage is our mental aspect. You know, we start thinking for ourselves. You know, we're growing up, we're figuring things out. You know, we're planning things. So we're developing our physical, our emotional, and our mental. And the next stage after that is our spiritual. So now we start following things, believing in things, you know, questioning things. So these are the four main components of our being, you know. So we're still a physical being, we're still an emotional being, you know, we're still a mental being, and we're still a spiritual being. But we're in a circle. And if any part of that circle breaks down, whether it be your physical beings is breaking down, that wheel isn't rotating, isn't as smooth flowing as it should be. There's a blockage in your circle of life. You know, if you're having a mental breakdown or an emotional breakdown. So these are the four things we need to be conscious of daily. You know, we need to feed these things. We need to take care of the things that take care of us. You know, if you got to take care of your physical being, because without our body, there is no life, you know, and you know, can't let our emotional state overtake us or destroy us, and we can't allow our mental either. So, and you know, and believe spiritually. So these are the four things, and that's why it's in a circle. It's like, because if any part of the wheel breaks down, we feel it within ourselves. So, and again, all different things that take part of our medicine wheel is the seasons are included. So we had spring, we have summer, we have fall, we have winter, we have the sun, the moon, the earth, and the stars. So there's many aspects to the medicine wheel. Like every part of life is in our circle and around us. The medicines are there, the tobacco, the cedar, the sage, and the sweetgrass. The time of day, you know, morning, noon, evening, and nighttime. You know, it's all part of things that we go through every single day. You know, and things that keep coming back to our circle. You know, when winter is over, spring begins again, and goes back to winter and back to spring. You know, so it's that circle of life. You know, the minerals, the plants, the human, and the animals. So everything's in four. The eagle, the wolf, the bear, and the buffalo. The two-legged, the four-legged, the winged, and the finned. So you know, if you look at something that's so small, you know, the medicine wheel, but there's so many parts of our life that are in that circle, you know. So again, we need to keep track of our wholeness, you know, our completeness of our circle of life, and all the things that are in it, like, you know, all the animals in the world, you know, the two, the four, the winged, fins. You know, the medicine wheel teachings provide guidance for wellness and balance in our lives, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically. So they teach us about all the things that come into our life that are important about our own life, the things in the world that are around us, the seasons. You know, it's just it's a good guide to follow your path. You know, the medicine wheel as a model for education. You know, feed your mind, feed your body, feed your heart and your spirit. You know, like knowledge and research and development, assessment. You know, think things through. You know, like your relationships and dialogue and collaboration, and your skills and the things that you do to stay healthy. You know, and your heart, feeling about when, about yourself and others, interconnectedness and different worldviews. These are things to allow into your circle, to be open-minded and open-hearted, and your spirit of attitudes and insight and overcoming challenges. So it's a good model to just to keep in mind of your medicine wheel, and everything that's inside of that medicine wheel is what's circles you in your daily life, and how it's all sacred, and how it should all be treated in a sacred way. And they found medicine wheels still intact in Alberta. So here's an actual picture of one they found in Alberta, and they put a fence around it to protect, so people wouldn't kick the rocks or collect rocks from it. So it's a teaching that's been carried around for thousands of years, as well as part of that oneness, that circle of life, which is you. You're that center in that circle, and everything else is evolving around you, and is a part of you. The seasons are a part of you, and all the animals in the world are a part of you, and your parts of life and your family. Here's another one. Medicine wheel, southern East Alberta. So it was used for teachings. So they would find a lot of these where the communities were, or people would set up encampments as they were following the bison, but they would be used for teaching tools for the young. And in the distance, there's rings for the teepee, because a lot of times rocks we put on the bottom of the teepees to keep the sides from flying up with the wind, or to control the airflow coming into the teepee. So. And then again, honor the sacred, honor the earth, the mother, our elders, to whom we share the earth, the four-winged, the two-legged, winged ones, swimmers, crawlers, plants, rock people, walk in balance and beauty. So it's all about balance, because the wheel rotates in perfect balance. So these are all parts of our life, parts of our sharing circle, and part of our circle, but we share that circle. So again, that's why it's important to respect all aspects of ourselves and everything around us, to keep that balance in our circle of life. So the sacred circle, when the Creator put us on this earth, He gave us 4 gifts to help us through troubled times: the gift of prayer, the gift of sharing, the gift of crying to wash away the pain, and the 4th is laughter. If you're able to do these 4 things, it says you're on a healing journey. So these little quotes about the medicine wheel and the sacred circle. So if you ever hear that term, the sacred circle, that's that medicine wheel that you're in the center of. So we each have our own sacred circle, but we share our secret circle with everyone that, so we're part of each other's circle. And just some ideas for your mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical care. Just a few things to reading, practicing mindfulness, inspiration, meditation, prayer, time in nature, playing, time with loved ones, arts and music, healthy boundaries, water, exercise, nutritious food, stretching, good sleep. So that was the medicine wheel. And before we move on, any questions on that?
Yeah, I have a question. Some people I've seen some people use blue instead of black.
Yes, yeah.
Can you talk about that a bit?
It all depends who's, where it's coming from, because I've seen the colors in different areas as well. I've seen, yeah, the blue represents the sky. So sometimes they would put the blue and green representing the sky and the earth, which is, part of our sacred circle. So again, like I said earlier, like the meat of everything is the same, but there are variances depending on where it's coming from and who's doing the teaching. So it's not set in stone, but you'll see a lot of the little variances on it, because I know not everyone uses the colors in the same direction that I was shown and that I use. So, but there's difference, yeah, there's to be a little bit of a different story, but very close to, depending on who's using the colors and in what format. And but I don't use the blue or the green, but I've seen it, like, I've seen it as well. And if not, maybe I'll move on to the next chapter then.
Yeah, I was just thinking that sometimes I've seen the blue in the center of the circle as sort of for a Métis wheel.
Yeah, so the Métis would have their own take on it as well. Yeah, so they include it and fit it into their belief system. So yeah, it all just, there's no wrong way, there's as long as the teachings are pretty similar, and
Mhm.
I was going to do code of ethics, but I think I'll just jump to powwow dance styles, because I think we're going to end up probably running out of time.
So then will we start with code of ethics tomorrow?
Well, we can do it now if you like. It's something I'll go through it quickly then. I think I got to open it separately though. Does it show up on there? Do you see it?
No.
Okay, let me do something here. I got powwow up. Okay, well, you'll do code of ethic tomorrow.
Okay.
Did anything show up there?
Yep.
Okay, so here's a picture of a powwow. And you'll see the different regalia, different styles, different colors. So the powwow is a celebration where people come together for song and dance. It is also a gathering of all tribes, a chance to communicate across all communities, and to gather and reunite with old friends. So after a hard winter, the land's drying up, people are mobile again. They would have a celebration. So people would come from different areas to have a powwow, to do some trading, to celebrate, to dance together, to celebrate surviving another winter. There's a chance to get together, because sometimes you're pretty isolated. If you're living in a teepee, because it's not really, you can't really set up a teepee on top of the snow, because so once you got your teepee down in the fall and it starts snowing on it and stuff, because you're pretty much going to be there for the winter, because if you try and reset up a teepee on, on top of 2 feet of snow. And as your fire is burning, then it's going to be melting underneath you. And so usually people don't move around too much. They create camps in the winter time, and they'll stay as a community within a camp and kind of tough out the winter there, and have your pemmican and have your wood ready and get ready to survive the winter. So come summertime, you want to celebrate, you want to get out, you want to, get together with other people. So it's a chance to gather and reunite with old friends. It's a chance to celebrate. Today's powwow is more contemporary than it once was. At competition powwows, dancers and singers compete for thousands of dollars. Regalia has changed over the years towards flashy and colorful outfits. So back in the day, I was talking to an elder, and he said back when he was younger, you wore the feathers that you earned. So people would, you'd see a lot of buckskin, grass dance outfits were actually grass, and so you didn't see that much feathers. Like, so if you earned your feathers, you got to wear them to dance. So sometimes you might see someone with 1 feather. Sometimes you might see someone with, 4 or 5 feathers in the regalia. But nowadays you go to a powwow and people wearing, triple bustles and very colorful and a lot of feathers. So it's a little more contemporary than a traditional powwow once was. And you'll still find traditional powwows nowadays, because every community or every First Nations seems to have a powwow now. Like that was very illegal at one time and forbidden, and now over the years, every community seems to have a celebration and a powwow during the summer.
Hi, how many years was it illegal?
Until like 1968 or something, 65, like people would have to go in the woods at night, like miles into the woods at night to hold any of their ceremonies or to dance and it wasn't that long ago. Like it's pretty recent. Like, and especially here in Manitoba, like an elder I was talking to, they started the Indian and Métis Friendship Center, I think in 1969 or 1970. And they went to have a celebration and they couldn't find any powwow dancers in Manitoba. They couldn't find any drum group. So they brought in singers and dancers from Ontario and Saskatchewan and for their celebration. So that was like 1969, 1970. But now it's part of that revitalization that we're talking about. It's like it's being accepted again. It's being openly shared. It's being celebrated. It's something to be proud of, not to be hidden anymore. So now you look at it, there's powwow clubs across Winnipeg. There's a powwow in every community in the summer. There's thousands of dancers now. There's hundreds of singers and drummers. So it's something that's to be shared now, something to be celebrated, something to be proud of, not to be hidden away, or something to be felt ashamed of, like you're being punished to do something that your ancestors have been doing for thousands of years. That, so now it's made it's made the comeback, and it's taken on, and it's like all of our ceremonies, like the sun dance, and like when the Europeans arrived and Columbus, and they seen some of these things, and right away that it's devil worshiping, it's devil work, and it's against God, and it's punishable by death, and so it was very heavily punished, like so. And so we're lucky that some of the ancestors and elders of the day kept it going in secrecy, like if it's something that could easily have been wiped away completely if there wasn't a will, there wasn't a way, so they desperately wanted to keep these things alive, and now thank God that we can celebrate these things and proudly have our children, learning to dance at a young age and being able to sing and to go to powwows and celebrate in the communities like it once was. So that's part of the reconciliation, I guess, process of people taking their culture back and sharing it with others and being proud of it.
When I was growing up, there was a lot of fear around those celebrations to the point where you would have to be invited to a powwow. Like now, as you know, a non-Indigenous person, I can walk up and join. But certainly, when I was growing up, it was a very it was a gesture of trust and honor to be invited to a powwow. It wasn't advertised. It was something that would happen and we would know it was happening, but unless you were invited as a non-Indigenous person, showing up created an entire atmosphere. Like it was like the scariest situation and nobody would be, impressed with your presence. There was a lot of fear for just judgment, retribution, and just like that long-standing shame that was experienced. So it was very guarded growing up.
Oh yeah, and it would be because there's the issue of trust, and a broken trust, and wanting to keep the culture and their practices alive. And part of that way was even just to keep it hidden almost, and not to let too many people know what's going on, but then the gates opened up and it was acceptable by everyone, and it was okay to share it, and it was great to bring it back into the mainstream and to share with everybody once because there was a lot of trust issues. Like I spoke to an elder 15, 20 years ago. We had an event here at the App Center and we're talking about culture. And there's an old lady in her probably 90 something ish. And she goes, she could never trust government. She goes, she could never trust the corporate, the schools and the RCMP. Because she goes, as a child, every time she said they were going to do something, it just turned out bad for her, like she says, and she was punished and, put in schools and taken away from the family and, promised things. And, even like even after the treaties, we'll live in unity. We'll thrive side by side. But here's a whole bunch of smallpox blankets that killed 10 million more people, so there's always that mistrust. And even during the wars, we'll come to a treaty, let's do a peace signing, and then 20 chiefs show up and they're slaughtered on site, and it was just a means to get them out in the open, so there's that culture of missed promises, or and so a lot of the people became leery and scared in a way to share things and to open up things, because they think it's gonna hurt them again, or backfire, or if they find a way to punish them again. So, but that's changing now, and that's coming out into more of a open-mindedness and sharing it with the community without being punished for it. So, yeah, there's a lot of history there that we're getting over and getting used. Cause we're only a few generations in of actually having the practices back, openly without being punished for it. And even to this day, like I was at an art show at the Friendship Center 15 years ago, and there's a guy from, I forget what community, but he's from northern Manitoba, and he says that he makes dream catchers and stuff, and he says that people in the community accuse him of witchcraft for the things that he's making, so there's still that culture of I don't know if it's putting it down or fear of it, or to suppress it, like to not have it come to life again, or to, but yeah, there's a lot of getting over things and a lot of healing that's taking place, and that's what it is. It's the healing process takes different forms and feels different ways sometimes, and some people will always hold that resentment and then maybe not heal, so, but in the most part, there's a lot of healing and a lot of sharing and a lot of giving back now. So it's a process for sure, because it's not that old, it's fresh wounds for a lot of people still. So that, I guess we're talking about the drum. So if you look at the drum, all the side straps are sinew or cut up rawhide and soaked, and the tops would be soaked, and the sinew would all be soaked, and it would all be strung together when it was all rubbery, and then it would dry nice and tight like that once the sinew dried up, and once the rawhide dried up. But one of the most important things in the life of Aboriginal people is the drum. Without the drum and the singers around it, we could not have powwows. The drum brings forth the heartbeat of our Earth Mother to the powwow for the people to feel and hear. Whether dancing, singing, or just listening, people around the drum can connect with the spirit. So that's that boom, boom, boom. That's the heartbeat of Mother Earth, and that's what gives people the steps for dancing, or that energy is to feel the heartbeat is still alive in the people and in Mother Earth and through them, so that's how they feel the life energy, is the heartbeat of their Earth Mother, is because a lot of their teachings revolve around the earth, like protecting the water and the land and the animals, and just having respect for it, and to not, and not destroy these things, and for them to still have that connection to it all after all these years is important. And so that's what represents that drum, is the heartbeat. So I'll talk about different dance styles. So you'll go to a powwow and you'll see, different dance styles. Like in the picture, you can see someone in a jingle dress, and you can see someone with some fancy shawls hanging, and you can see like the man in the front is wearing the eagle bustle. So that would be men's traditional. So men's traditional is the oldest form of American or Aboriginal dancing in North America. So that's one of the first styles, is the men's traditional. The dance simulates the warrior preparing for battle. So part of the dance includes the sneak up and the crow hop. So sometimes you'll see them on their knees with their arm up and looking up, and sometimes they'll like hop like a crow, as it's called, the crow hop. So there's different steps involved in the men's traditional. And at times during the dance, the drummer will use the heavy drum strokes to suggest the sounds of gunfire. So every so often you'll hear the doom, 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 and all of a sudden, boom, 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 and then it'll go like boom, back to their normal rhythm. So that suggests the sneak up, the preparing for battle, and the sound of gunfire. So that's all kind of replicated in this style of dance. So next time you're at a powwow, if you're ever at a powwow, you can kind of hear the drum do that, and you can kind of see how they dance to those sounds. And you can see on his head, it's called a roach, and that's made with porcupine hair. You can kind of see, people will find porcupines, and so they'll make a head roach out of porcupine, and the back would be all eagle feathers. So another form of men's dance, and women I've seen dance now, is the grass dance. It's a society of young warriors to the Plains Indians. The grass dancer would be the first in the arbor or new settlement to flatten the grass for the other dancers and villagers. So, they didn't use lawnmowers back in the day. So if you're following, you're following the bison and you come to a new encampment and the grass is 4 feet high or 3 feet high, these young dancers would go in and they would do long sweeping leg steps. So they'd be like putting the grass down, putting the grass down, putting the grass down, putting the grass down. So they would flatten the grass on a whole section, and then people would set up their teepees in their village in that area that's been flattened. And then once they leave there, the grass would come back to life. So that's what they call them, the grass dancers. And their outfit was originally made out of grass, but I've changed to a contemporary outfit. So now they use fringe and ribbon instead of the traditional grass they used to use back in the old days. So it's still a neat style. Again, if you watch them dance, you'll see like the long sweeping leg strokes, mimicking the old days of flattening the grass for the new settlement and for the village to set up during the summertime. And again, you can kind of see the porcupine hair in the headdress. So jingle dress. The jingle dress is also called a prayer dress. So the dress was seen in a dream as an object to bring healing to afflicted people. So prior to snuff can lids for the jingles, they would use like the hoofs of deer and stuff to hang, and they would kind of make a clanking noise or a noise when they hit together on the dress. So they would use the natural things they had back in the day, and then once they're decorated nowadays, they're decorated with rolled up snuff can lids that are hung with ribbon. So once the trade began and snuff cans were popular, they would find that rolling up the lids would give them nice little cone shapes. So that was used for the longest time, and still to this day, they're made that way, or they're just made. Or you can buy bags of pre-made cones, or people who want to make their own. But if you're ever at a powwow, there's a few things to know. You can call what they have on their regalia, "I love your regalia," or "I love your outfit," but never call it a costume, because a costume is, and I've heard people say it, it's like, and maybe just because they don't know better, but it's good to know a few of these things before going to a powwow, and never just go up and touch their outfit, never go up and, "Hey, this looks really cool," and go up to them and ask them, like a lot of times they're very proud of their regalia, and they'll be happily, share the story of it with you, or a lot of people want to have their picture taken with them. So, always ask first, always ask in a good way, because a lot of times they're more than happy to show you their outfit, or to have a picture taken with you, but just don't go there in a bully way, or and they're very, very good people. Like they're very, into their culture and practicing their culture, and spiritual beings, and so you're happy to have people interested in them. So they'll share and tell you the story and have a picture taken with them, but yeah, never just assume to go there and touch their feathers or something, like, it's always good to ask.
I just had 2 questions about the jingle dress, if I can.
Sure.
One was, is it just primarily women? And 2, is there like a meaning or something that they signify while they dance?
Yeah, like if you close your eyes, it's for healing. It's that sound of to bring healing to the community. It's like 365 cones on them traditionally, and they would signify health for each day of the year. So each cone represented a day of the year, and to bring healing energy to each of those days. So it's kind of a prayer dress in a sense for for good health for the community. So as they dance, that's what they're doing, is like to call the prayer dress. So it's like it's doing, it's offering prayer to all those around them and to the community. But I also love the way it sounds. Like if you ever at a powwow and they had the category of jingle dress dance, you can close your eyes. It's got that it's got that rain on a tin roof kind of a sound to it. It's got a beautiful sound to it if you ever had the opportunity to listen to it. So
Is it just the women who wear jingles? Do men sometimes as well?
traditionally it's been women, but I think there's no right or wrong, because I think I see women dancing men's styles now, and I think I've seen men dancing women's style now. So they're very open about two spirits back in the day, and they embraced it, and I don't think there's any wrong way of dance style that you would want to dance. And, move on. Fancy shawl. So ladies' fancy shawl is the newest form of women's dance and is quite athletic. Yeah, this is one of the faster dances you'll see at a powwow. They are to mimic butterflies in flight. They dance in dance styles graceful and light. The ladies wear their shawls over their shoulders and dance by jumping and spinning around, keeping in time with the music. So you see their stepping is very in tune with the beats. They use their shawl like butterfly wings, and they're dipping and swaying and spreading, and just a beautiful athletic dance. And a lot of times people will incorporate their name, like sometimes someone will be like a Blue Eagle woman or something might be their name. So you'll see a lot of blue with eagle incorporated in their regalia. Or sometimes people will use their colors. Typically, if you go to a sweat or ask an elder through a pipe ceremony for your colors, usually you're given 4 colors. So like so that you'll look in the picture, maybe your colors are red, orange, yellow, and blue or something. So they'll incorporate their colors and their name into their regalia a lot of times. So that's why they're very unique to each dancer has their own kind of take on their outfit, so it's not cookie cutters, it's you don't see the same regalia on every single dancer. They're all kind of tailored to their own name and colors and the style they dance. So the women's traditional, the oldest form of women's dance is the traditional buckskin dance. This is a dance of elegance and grace. And the women will raise their eagle feather fans in honor of the drum during the heartbeat of the song. These highly respected women dance in rhythm with the drum by swaying and slightly bending their knees. So usually they dance on the outside of the circle. They move very slow and kind of a very rhythmy kind of little steps. And they usually have their eagle fan up in the sky to the creator in honor of the drum during the heartbeat of the song. So they're very honoring song and showing respect by the women in the community. And sometimes people change dance style as they get older. Like sometimes, the younger women might start off with the fancy shawls, a young athletic dance, and then maybe switch on to jingle as they get older, and maybe in their elderly years, maybe switch off to women's traditional dance, or some might keep the same dance style all their lives. So it's up to each person to how they feel their transition goes, and changing of style as they age, and to fit maybe more of their needs. But it's gorgeous. And look at the work in that outfit. Like the cutting of the fringe, it looks like white buckskin. Tons of beautiful, like the breastplate. Traditionally, you'll see women's breastplates running up and down. And then you'll see a lot of the men's breastplate are more side to side with the running of the bones. And I think her whole shawl piece is beaded, so there's like amazing amounts of beadwork that go into her moccasins and leggings and arms and side pieces and hair ties. And people will spend years adjusting and modifying and putting their outfits together.
Now, is this something that like folks would make for themselves, or like will someone make it for you, or what does that sort of look like?
A lot of them make it themselves, but I've known people who want to barter, or nowadays I see people buying regalia for themselves. Because I see, someone's selling a jingle dress and someone's buying it, so people are, but you'll see a lot of people will make their own. They prefer to make their own. And some of them have the skill, or some of them will buy pieces for it, like in the picture, you can see someone wearing a ribbon shirt. So someone probably made that ribbon shirt for him, and maybe someone made his slippers for him. So sometimes you can make part of it yourself. Sometimes you can make all of it yourself. So I guess it always comes down to the individual, or sometimes it's family, like the father or the mother is making the regalia for their children. So it all depends on skill set, I guess, and time and what they have access to, I guess. But I know some people will buy it because they do want to dance, and that might be their only outlet to get an outfit is to buy one or to trade for one. So.
And just going off that, is it common to share regalia or to pass down regalia through families, or?
I could see being passed down. Yeah, I could see, the mother or father or older brother passing something down, or older sister passing something down to keep part of the family in the regalia. And again, there's no wrong or right way, but yeah, traditionally you'd want to keep, you'd be honored to have something of your family in your regalia for sure.
A question, can a non-Indigenous person make and wear regalia and dance in powwow?
Again, that would probably come down from community to community, how they run their powwows. You'd have to ask them, because I know in Europe, in Germany, they've created like powwow clubs where they make their own regalia, and they run their own sweats, and they have their own powwows. And I see two schools of thought on that. I see some people are kind of offended by that, and I see some people are okay with that. So I can't speak for everybody, but I see some people that are kind of offended by it, and I see some people that are pretty open-minded and okay with it. So, but again, it's always best to ask, and again, it's different, so one community might be really good with it, and some might invite you to do it like intertribal, because during the powwow they have intertribals, and during that time anyone is allowed to come in, like all tribes are allowed to come and dance together. And all community members, so all nations are allowed to come and dance together. So so you can see all races of people coming down and dancing together during the intertribals. And but again, you'd probably have to ask the arena announcer or the elder there if it's open for all nations to dance in regalia, or if they're, because yeah, everyone makes their own rules, or everyone has their own do's and don'ts, so. I'm hoping it's accepted openly, but and it might be, but again, you'd have to. I don't assume, like I can't guess what communities are doing, but it'd always be best to. Because I know Sundance is open to everybody, like people from all nations come in and Sundance and Pierce and stuff. So I'm hoping the POW is the same way. So there's a story of the chicken dance. It's an old style of chicken dance. It's one of the oldest forms of dancing, and the dance mimics the prairie chicken. So years and years ago, a guy and his wife and their children were in the teepee, and they're really hungry. They were just on the verge of starving, and they wanted some food. So they're listening, and they can hear, like he could hear you ever hear a prairie chicken in the wild? It's got that when it fluffs its breast feathers. So he followed the sound, and he came across two prairie chickens in the woods, and they're in the middle of a mating dance. They're fluffing their chest to each other and expanding their glands, and they're in the love ritual. They're in their mating dance. So he takes the arrow and he shoots one, and he brings it home, and the family eats prairie chicken that night. So that night he has a dream of the chicken came to him in his dream, and the chicken's like, why did you kill me? I was in a love dance with my mates, and we were celebrating, and we were about to enter courtship, and he goes, you must honor me for taking my life. So then he started to dance at powwows to represent the chicken dance, to honor the chicken whose life he took. So that was the story I was told on the origin of the chicken dance. There's a few other do's and don'ts at a powwow. Usually when they're full on, picture taking is allowed, but if a feather falls off of someone's regalia, they say not to take a picture, shut off your cameras, and they stop the powwow right there, and they bring out the elder, and the elder comes out to pick up that fallen feather, and that should never be photographed. And then and there's repercussions to that, to having your regalia come apart on you, or having feathers come off your regalia, to the point where you confiscate, you give your regalia, or you have to give a gift to honor that fallen feather to the elder who picked up that feather. So and they ask not to photograph that. So that's something that shouldn't be photographed. But otherwise, you go to a powwow, the cameras are going steady. People are taking pictures of them dancing. And this one's neat to watch. Men's fancy dance. The men's fancy dance is a colorful and athletic performance. The men's fancy dance is among the most popular events held at powwow, and has turned into fierce competitions. The moves become increasingly adventurous: cartwheels, splits, and backflips. So yeah, if you ever watch the men's fancy dance, the very colorful double, triple bustles, armbands, flashy colors, and spitting and kicking and backflips and cartwheels. And so it's big money. Like in the States, I think there's like $100,000 prizes at some of the powwows in some of the categories. Like it's almost like a big business for, like, they're really good dancers. They'll follow the powwow trail all summer long and compete. And a lot of them are, they put a lot of effort into their dance, into their steps, into their regalia, and a lot of them become, champion dancers. And then there's the traditional powwows where there's no prize money, but people come in and celebrate just dancing together. So there's two different forms of powwow: the more traditional and then the contemporary prize money style powwows. but it's good they've, they could take it to that level now, and there's, no repercussions, or, there's like, highly advertised powwows now, like the communities like, share the on events calendars when they're having their powwows in their communities. And so it's a thing that's a lot more shared than once was, hidden in the woods at 2 o'clock in the morning and only shared by a few people, to where now it's like people come from all over the world sometimes to attend some of the powwows in some of the communities. So it's coming a long ways. The hoop dance. The hoop dance is one of the oldest dances in North America. It came through a vision of a medicine man. In his vision, he was told to make hoops out of red willow and to dance with them. One use of the dance was to ward off bad spirits that were around the village by doing different designs of animals, which would confuse the evil spirits, forcing them to leave the village. So if you watch the hoop dancer, sometimes they're in an eagle formation, sometimes they're in a bear shape. So they shape shift, they take on different forms as they're dancing. And again, the old story was to make shapes of different animals to ward off evil spirits back in the day, and they were made out of the red willow. Here you can see in the picture that it's more of a PVC tubing with electrical tape for coloring and for holding it together. So again, it's been contemporized a bit as opposed to the traditional form, but it's a very entertaining dance, and a lot of times they'll save it for the end, and people really like to watch the people hoop dance. And some will use, a few hoops, and some will use, 40 hoops and make elaborate forms. And so it's really cool to watch. And here you can see the people in the background were like, watching pretty good. So we got 5 minutes left for today. Should we wrap up with a few questions, maybe? Any thoughts or ideas or?
Not a question, but a comment. I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing this. I've learned quite a few new things already, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of the week.
Yeah,
Likewise.
Thanks. Yeah.
I didn't realize there were so many different kinds of dance. Actually, I've only known about half of them previously.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. And now that you can go to a powwow, you can kind of point it out, you can identify, you can see the differences in the styles, because they all dance differently. So, and if you're ever at a powwow and they call for an intertribal, that means you're invited to go up there and join the dancers and take a ring around the arena with them, or around the Arberg. And so they seem to be a lot inviting. They want people to join them to dance and to share the powwows with as many people as they can.
I was just curious, I know you were talking about, there being repercussions regarding feathers falling off, like during dance, like what is the significance of that? And
because you're supposed to honor those feathers
Okay.
and your regalia, and it's considered a sign of disrespect, I guess, to have when touching the ground, or to be where it could be stepped on. Or so that's why the dancers have the utmost attention to their regalia to make sure that doesn't happen. Because I've heard of the arena director like taking their whole powwow regalia, or
oh wow,
people having to give gifts to the elders of star blankets and things. Like there's huge consequences to having something like that happen to you. And so that's something that nobody wants to have, because it's an embarrassment to them as well to have your regalia malfunction in front of all the other dancers that you respect. So it's something they really make sure that things are attached on properly to. And that's why they asked not to photograph that, out of the respect for of their shame, I guess, to have that happening to them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've heard some things about dancers who are performing at events, dancing at events that have alcohol, being controversial or problematic.
It's like everything. I know sometimes you'll hear people smoke weed as well, and then but that's part of their life. They enjoy dancing, but they also have addictions. So their addictions are kind of getting in the way, but they don't want to stop dancing at the same time. So it's like, so you do find that, and you do hear a lot of the people that don't like it as well and try to prevent that from happening, but it does happen. Like,
Yeah, I heard about in particular performing with musicians and just being asked to remove their eagle feathers when they do that as part of their regalia.
like in a contemporary setting, like as a band on stage kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see that quite a bit. Yeah, as long as they're removing the regal feathers, that should be okay. Like even in the 70s, there was that, it's on YouTube, it's the band Redbone, Come Get Your Love, and they got the bass player, guitar player comes out in his regalia in the beginning and dances, and then they start off with the doom, 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 doom. So it's fine to share your culture and on a contemporary stage, but yeah, again, stay away from the alcohol if you're gonna do that, or remove your eagle feathers. And yeah, in the perfect world, there'd be no drugs or alcohol, but it's not a perfect world, and people do have addictions, and so. Anything else? If not, then I thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.
Thank you, Jacques. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
It's a lot of information.
There's more to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank
everyone.
you. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thanks. We'll see you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. And it's the same link. Same link.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah, okay.
Thanks, Arlie.
Okay.
Bye.